I would love to introduce now Rabbi Ariel Stofenmacher. He's going to teach us today about Torah competition in the online world. Rabbi Stofenmacher is president and rector of the Seminario and a professor of Halakha and Rabbinics. Thank you, Rabbi.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you all. Hi, Ellen. Great to see you and the rest. Well, we want to discuss a few minutes, less than 30, I believe, about an issue which is not what we usually discuss, which is competition and economics that applied to our world, to the world of the Torah education and Torah teaching. You know, when you think about economics and you think about enterprises, companies, the words are competition, monopoly, supply, demand, and well, all the kind of words that you and I who studied in a business school learn. And the objective of this kind of approach is to maximize something. In that case, in the case of companies, is to maximize profit for the shareholders. So I just heard the last minute of my dear friend and colleague who talked about the community, which is everybody that gets into your Zoom screen. And I would say that if you're a company, you want everybody to get into your Zoom screen, because in that way you increase your market share and even more your share of mind of the people. So people will be more close to you and will buy more from you, even though there's another one that does the same thing in the other part of the world. And that's the general problem. What happens when two or more do the same thing and compete with each other? Do we have my presentation somewhere or not to show in the screen? Okay. Can you go to the first one? Great. So let's suppose we are in the so-called free capitalist world. So what is free competition within the law? So you offer what you have to offer. Everybody is free to take what you offer if it is within the law. If you have a monopoly, if it's a natural monopoly, you're allowed to use it. You're allowed to operate it. For example, if you are the only provider of electric energy in a certain place, because you cannot have two pairs of cables going to every house. But if not, you are punished by the authorities for having monopolies. Or you may have businesses where two people do the same thing in the same region, and so they arrange one with the other to set prices in order to maximize their benefit and not the benefit of the public. So they got oligopolies, or they collude with each other. But there are remedies, the remedies that the authorities put. So what this has to do with the Torah, we'll see in a minute. Let's read together the central paragraph, which is taken from Talmud Bavli, Baba Batra, 21st B. Okay, I will read it. Please follow me. Rab Una bar Rab Yeshua said, "It is quite clear to me that the resident of one town can prevent the resident of another town from setting up a competing outlet in his town. Not, however, if he pays taxes to that town, and that the resident of an alley cannot prevent another resident of the same alley from establishing a competing outlet in his alley." So that's the first part. What we see different from what I've said so far What we see different is that there are limits to the competition, and there's an idea that if you pay taxes and both of the potential competitors pay taxes to the same authority in the same place, they can do that. But if you live in an alley, yeah, a Maboy, we will go to the last part of the screen in a minute. You cannot prevent another resident from doing the same because you both live in the same place. So at the last part, they say, Rabbi Yuna Bar Yeshua then raised the question, can the resident of one alley prevent the resident of another from competing with him? Again, can the resident of one alley prevent the resident of another from competing with him? And the question remains unsolved. So what we see here is that for the Talmud, at least from this source in Baba Batra, if you live in a certain place, if your let's put it in economic terms, if your market is determined by a certain circumcision, a certain surface of space, well, in the Talmudic terms, a certain alley, whether you cannot compete or not with another one that lives in the same alley is a question that remains to be solved. So let's go back, please, to the shared screen, and we will see the main concept that I want to discuss, which is you can see in blue, in white letters over the blue part, they say Maboy. Maboy in Hebrew it's Ali. So the question is, what's a Maboy and what's the global world and how one interacts with one another? So the question is an alley, the Talmudic alley, the same thing that the global world that we have now today, where one can enter the screen living in 10,000 miles away or not? So is the Maboy the whole world or not? Because if we agree that if it is the same, so we have certain rules. I mean, if we determine that they're not, we have different set of rules for competition. Okay, let's go to the next screen, please. In general, what we've seen is regarding to the competition in the selling of goods and services. For example, if you have a pharmacy in one alley and another one who lives in the same alley wants to open another pharmacy, well, as Rabbi Yuna said, it remains to be solved if the second one can open a pharmacy in the same place. Why? Because the second one might take a little bit from the earnings and the living of the first one. So the mere question that the mere saying that it remains to be solved tells us that pure absolute competition is not what the Torah wants us to do. So we will first in this screen learn together and read together the white letters over the blue part, and we learn about Asagat Gebul. So there's a central concept in Jewish law, which is Asagat Gebul. You know, in Dvarim, Deuteronomy 19:14, there says, Lo tasig Gebul reacha. Lo tasig Gebul reacha. In that place, well, in the English is, you do not trespass for your fellow's boundaries. It's related to, or the context is a context related to agriculture. Yeah. So if you have a certain field, yeah, you can do your thing within your part. You cannot trespass to the field of your neighbor. But moreover, in the same Dvarim, but in Deuteronomy 27:17, it says, Arur masig gvul re'eu be'amar kol ha'am amen. The Arur part of the Torah, yeah, they say, cursed be he who moves his fellow countryman landmark. So, if not only you trespass the field and try to sow and plow or your cows go to the field of your neighbor, but moreover you take the landmarks and try to expand your field artificially, um, uh, using and entering in the field of your neighbor. So you are arur. The Torah says you will be cursed. You will be cursed. It's not that Stam simply, please don't do that. No. You will be cursed. Um, and Be'amar kol ha'am amen. Everybody said, okay, we agree with this. You cannot trespass your fellow boundaries. So what does these agriculture issues have to do with the competition in Torah education? Well, among many others, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, in his world famous Igrot Moshe, his Teshuvot, his Teshuvot in Choshen Mishpat, in that place 138, he makes the equivalency between Asagat Gvul and unfair competition. So when you masig Gvul, when you trespass your boundary, you are getting into your neighbor's part. So you are doing unfair competition. So think about the Zoom screens in the meanwhile. But the Torah at least divides the Torah problem of the unfair competition at least in two parts, and that's at the left of the same slide, the two paragraphs. One is related to Torah education, and the other is related to let's say to human resources. So let's read together in the left, Babli Baba Batra 21b, 22a, and it says, I read in the original. The Amar Mar, Ezra tiken laen leIsrael, שיהיו מושיבים סופר בצד סופר, קנאת סופרים תרבה חוכמה. So, regarding Torah education, what says us the Talmud is that when you have more Torah, it's better. So, Kinat Sofrim Tarvechol Chochma. So, the competition among teachers increases the wisdom. So, that's the saying. Kinat Sofrim Tarvechol Chochma. So, it seems to be that the unfair competition does not apply in Torah education. For example, let's go back to an alley. If there's a melamed, a teacher that lives in that alley and teaches to the kids there, and another one comes and wants to settle and opens a cheder in his living room, so because the parents will send their kids to the best one of both. That's the whole idea. So that's the first concept. The second one we'll read in the other paragraph. I read in the original. וכבר כתבו גדולי עולם שעכשיו המנהג שכל שיש רב בעיר אסור לאחר לבוא בעיר ולהתיישב שמה. והיא השגת גבול וגזל גמור. Wow. So, and the great sages of the world already wrote that now the custom is that when there's a rabbi in town, it is prohibited for another one to come and settle there not for living purposes, but as a community rabbi that competes. And it is a violation of Asagat Gvul. Yeah? And the Aruch Shulchan in Yoredea defines it as Gezel Gamur, robbery, Gezel. It's the second rabbi is a Gazlan. He is robbing from the first one. So when when it comes to giving services to people, not Torah education, so it seems to be that it is not permitted. So if we go back to the online idea, it was the whole purpose of this short conversation. It seems to be that in the online world, where it seems to be that in reality, not in Torah, but in reality, with a Zoom, you can reach everybody, everywhere, every place. And the Ali, the Maboy, is a worldwide Maboy. So it seems to be that if you're teaching Torah, for example, what we are now doing today in this Tikkun, it's not a Sagat Vul. But if you offer services, let me put it in this way, if it seems to be that you offer services, Kabbalat Shabbat services, online, and people from Buenos Aires can reach one in Miami, or in New York, or in Jerusalem, it seems to be that it's not allowed and it's considered Gezel. Nice, huh? Nice. It's complicated, yeah, I know it's complicated. Full disclosure, I came to Rabbinate after being a banker, so I quite love these kind of things. So let's go to the last screen, please. Thanks. So what to do? How do not do a Sagat Gvul, do not be a Gazlan, and in the meanwhile, teach Torah and give the best services we can to the Jewish people. Wow, that's a question. I don't know how I do not have the answer, for sure. If I had the answer, well, it would be different. But what we know, that we aspire to a higher standard for our institutions than regular business operations. So if we're talking about business operations, we already said about, this kind of competition where you can talk about collusion and monopolies and that kind of stuff. But now, in Torah, we don't want that. We want to be better than that. I hope we want to be better than that. So I suggest a few actions. And these are the few actions I suggest. There are maybe many more, that they do not solve the whole problem, but help us to be what we want to be and do not be what we don't want to be. The first one is how not to compete, to partner. When you partner, you do not compete. If you compete in classes, we saw that it should be allowed, but in Davenem, it shouldn't. So why not to partner? Why don't you partner? The second one, we talk about maximizing shareholders' gains. You maximize shareholders' gains, earning money. So it's about price and costs. So why don't we avoid, that's the number two, why don't we avoid price competition? Because when you live in a certain alley, in the real world, the physical world, and you pay your dues to your synagogue, you don't pay the dues to the synagogue that is 5 kilometers away. It's tougher. It's tougher. But if the only thing you have to do is to choose between two Zoom links, you have a harsh decision. Yeah. So why don't avoid price competition? How you do that? You coordinate fees. It's not. You should not treat this as collusion. We all put the same prices in order to let somebody out, but you coordinate fees in order to allow for everybody's participation. The third one, technical collaboration. Why? You know, the big guys always eat the small guys. A big shul will always outbid a small shul in technical issues, in production, in nearly everything. When you're in the real world, it's one thing. When you're in online world, it's different. So why don't the big ones help the small ones and allow technical collaboration? That would be nice. 4, if you are so good and you are so big and you are so confident on yourself, so gear the services only to your members. Why go and try to steal others? So remain in your alley. Don't go to the other one. Remain in your alley. And if a member wants to change, so go to 5. Redirect the members of the institution to the of other institutions or to the original ones. For sure, people has all the right to decide what to do, and people can, and they are allowed to do that, to change synagogue, schools, or whatever. Some screens also, but if you make them understand what's happening, maybe more than one will change their idea. So just to sum up, Asagat Gvul is a complicated issue. We not always take it into account, but it's a very serious problem. In order to avoid Asagat Gvul, which is to trespass, there are many things you can do. Many things. When it's regarding to teaching Torah, Kinat Sofrim Tarbe Chochma. But when it is related to doing services that may affect others' livelihood, and more than that, existence, so you can, and we want you to do better and aspire for a higher standard. Well, it's all for now. Thank you so much for doing this. And Sydney, yours again.
Yasher Koach, Rabbi Stofenmacher. It's a lot to think about, especially from a community that's so small, but yet has 2 synagogues. So I'll definitely be thinking about that for the next few days. Thank you, Rabbi.